He thought she would be broken, waiting for him to return. But when the millionaire saw his ex-wife after 5 years, he discovered that sometimes losing everything is the beginning of finding yourself. The black limousine stopped in front of the modest neighborhood that Sebastian Torres had once sworn never to return to. Through the tinted windows, he observed the simple houses, the narrow streets, and the children playing in the dusty yards. Everything seemed frozen in time, exactly as he remembered from 5 years ago, when he had left this place forever, taking with him only his expensive suits and his wounded pride. Sebastian adjusted his Italian silk tie and checked his Rolex. 3 in the afternoon, a Tuesday like any other, except today, he was about to face the biggest mistake of his life. At 38 years old, he was one of the most successful real estate developers in the country, owner of luxury hotels and commercial complexes that bore his name. But success had a bitter taste when achieved at the cost of losing the only person who had ever loved him for who he truly was. "Wait here, James," he told his driver, stepping out of the vehicle. The afternoon heat hit his face immediately, so different from the air conditioning he was accustomed to in his penthouse office. He walked slowly toward house number 47, the small blue house where he had lived the happiest 3 years of his life, before ambition consumed him completely. Each step awakened memories he had tried to bury. Elena cooking in the tiny kitchen, Elena laughing at his silly jokes, Elena believing in his dreams when no one else did. Elena Morales, his ex-wife, the woman he had abandoned when his business began to prosper, convinced that she no longer fit into his new world of galas and important clients. "You're too simple, Elena," he had said during their last fight. "I need someone who understands my new life, someone who can help me grow." The words echoed in his mind like a curse he could never undo. He knocked on the door with trembling hands. This was the moment he had planned for months, the conversation he had rehearsed 1,000 times in front of the mirror. He would ask for her forgiveness, explain that he had been foolish, offer her the life she deserved. Elena would cry, perhaps resist at first, but eventually she would understand that they belonged together. The door opened, and Sebastian felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. The woman standing in the doorway was Elena, but at the same time, she wasn't. Gone was the shy girl with simple clothes and timid gestures. Before him stood an elegant woman wearing a professional blazer, her hair styled in a sophisticated cut, and in her eyes, a confidence he had never seen before. "Sebastian," she said, her voice firm and controlled. "What are you doing here?" "Elena, He struggled to find the words he had prepared. "You look different. People change, Sebastian, especially when they're forced to rebuild their lives from scratch." She didn't invite him in, remaining in the doorway like a barrier between her new world and her painful past. "I know I have no right to be here," he began, trying to regain the confidence that had always defined him. "But I needed to see you. I needed to tell you that I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life." Elena crossed her arms, studying him with an expression he couldn't decipher. "And what mistake was that? Leaving me or taking so long to come back?" The question hit him like a slap. He had expected tears, perhaps anger, but not this cold composure that made him feel like a stranger. "Leaving you," he replied honestly. "I was blind, Elena. I thought I needed someone different, someone who could fit into my business world. But I was wrong. You were perfect. You are perfect." A bitter smile crossed Elena's lips. "Perfect? That's interesting, Sebastian, because I remember very clearly you telling me I was too simple, too naive, that I would never understand your world of important people. I was an idiot. I was blinded by success, by money. But I've realized that none of that matters without you by my side. And what makes you think I'm still the same woman you left behind?" Elena asked, tilting her head slightly. "What makes you think I'm still waiting for you to decide I'm worthy of your love?" Sebastian felt confusion growing in his chest. This wasn't going as he had planned. Elena was supposed to be fragile, perhaps struggling financially, grateful for his return. Instead, she seemed powerful. "I know you've probably had a hard time," he said, trying a different approach. "I know money has been tight, that you've had to struggle. That's why I'm here. I want to take care of you, Elena. I want to give you everything I should have given you before." Elena's laugh was soft but held no warmth. "You think I've had a hard time? You think I've been struggling financially? Well, yes, I know you didn't have a profession, that you depended on me. I left you with nothing, and I hate myself for that. You left me with nothing, Elena repeated slowly, as if savoring each word. That's true. But you know what, Sebastian? Sometimes losing everything is the beginning of finding yourself. Before Sebastian could respond, a voice from inside the house interrupted them. Elena, darling, who's at the door? A tall, well-dressed man appeared behind Elena, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. Sebastian felt jealousy burn in his chest like acid. David, this is Sebastian Torres, my ex-husband, Elena said with surprising calm. Sebastian, this is David Ramirez, my business partner, and much more. David extended his hand to Sebastian with a cordial smile. The famous Sebastian Torres. Elena has told me about you. Congratulations on your business success. Sebastian shook David's hand mechanically, his mind trying to process what was happening. Elena had a new life, a new man, and from David's appearance and manner, he was clearly successful. Business partner? Sebastian asked, confused. Yes, Elena replied with a smile that seemed genuine for the first time. David and I run a consulting firm for sustainable construction. We specialize in eco-friendly projects for luxury hotels and resorts. The irony hit Sebastian like a truck. Elena was working in his own industry, the industry he had said she would never understand. Luxury hotels? He repeated weakly. Among other things. We've worked with some of the most important hotel chains in the country. Perhaps you've heard of some of our projects. Elena's tone was professional, as if she were talking to a potential client rather than her ex-husband. David checked his watch. Elena, we should get going. The meeting with the Meridian Group is in an hour. The Meridian Group. Sebastian knew them well. They were one of his biggest competitors. He felt the ground shifting beneath his feet as he realized that Elena, the woman he had considered too simple for his world, was now working with his rivals. You work with Meridian? He asked, unable to hide the shock in his voice. We do more than work with them, Elena replied with a satisfied smile. We're their exclusive consultants for all sustainable projects. It's been very profitable. Sebastian stood there, speechless, watching the woman he had underestimated walk toward a luxury car that was definitely not from 5 years ago. Elena was not only surviving without him, she was thriving. Sebastian, Elena said, turning back one last time, thanks for stopping by. It was enlightening to see you again. As the car disappeared down the street, Sebastian remained standing in front of the small blue house, realizing that he had not come to rescue Elena from a life of hardship. He had come to discover that she had built a life far more impressive than he had ever imagined. The woman he had left behind because she was too simple had become everything he had never given her credit for being. And now, perhaps, it was too late to undo the biggest mistake of his life. Sebastian spent the entire night staring at the ceiling of his luxury penthouse, the crystal chandelier above his bed reflecting the city lights like 1,000 accusatory eyes. Sleep was impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Elena's confident smile, David's protective hand on her shoulder, and the luxury car disappearing into the distance. The woman he had discarded like an old suit had reinvented herself so completely that he barely recognized her. By dawn, he was already at his computer, frantically searching for information about Elena's company. What he found made his stomach churn with a mixture of admiration and regret. Green Horizon Consulting wasn't just any small business. It was a thriving company with an impressive portfolio of high-profile clients. Photos showed Elena at industry conferences, shaking hands with hotel magnates, cutting ribbons at sustainable resort openings. How is this possible? He muttered, scrolling through articles praising Elena's innovative approach to eco-friendly luxury construction. One headline particularly stung: the visionary who's revolutionizing sustainable hospitality, Elena Morales, leads the green revolution in tourism. The article detailed how Elena had started the company from nothing, beginning with small local projects and gradually building a reputation for excellence. It mentioned her academic background, a degree in environmental engineering that Sebastian had never known about, completed through night classes while they were married. She had been studying the entire time, pursuing her dreams while he was too self-absorbed to notice. "James!" Sebastian called his driver, grabbing his jacket. We're going to the Meridian Hotel downtown. The drive through the city felt like a journey through his own failures. Every billboard advertising luxury hotels reminded him of what Elena was now accomplishing in his own industry. When they arrived at the Meridian, Sebastian was struck by the building's innovative design. Solar panels seamlessly integrated into the facade, vertical gardens climbing the walls, and a water recycling system that was clearly visible and beautiful. Inside the lobby, Sebastian approached the concierge, a young woman with a professional smile. "Excuse me, I'm Sebastian Torres from Torres Development Group. I'm interested in learning about your sustainable construction consultant. Elena Morales, I believe?" The concierge's face lit up immediately. "Oh, Ms. Morales, she's absolutely wonderful. She transformed this entire property. Would you like me to call our general manager? He loves talking about our green initiatives." Within minutes, Sebastian found himself in the office of Ricardo Silva, the hotel's general manager, who launched into an enthusiastic explanation of Elena's work. "Mr. Torres, Elena Morales is a genius," Ricardo began, pulling out architectural plans and sustainability reports. "She didn't just consult on our green features. She redesigned our entire operational philosophy. Our energy costs have dropped by 60%. Guest satisfaction has increased dramatically, and we've won 3 international awards for sustainable hospitality." Sebastian studied the documents, recognizing the precision and innovation in every detail. "How long has she been working with you?" 4 years now. She started with small recommendations, but her ideas were so brilliant that we made her our exclusive consultant. She's currently designing our new resort in Costa Rica, a completely carbon-neutral luxury destination. "Carbon-neutral luxury," Sebastian repeated, impressed despite himself. It was Elena's concept. She proved that environmental responsibility and luxury aren't mutually exclusive. In fact, our sustainable features have become our main selling point. Wealthy clients specifically choose us because of our green innovations. As Ricardo continued explaining Elena's projects, Sebastian felt a growing sense of loss that went beyond missing a person. He had missed witnessing an extraordinary mind at work. The woman he had called too simple had been quietly revolutionizing an entire industry. "She's also incredibly ethical," Ricardo added. "We offered her a partnership position last year, but she refused. Said she preferred maintaining her independence and working with multiple clients. Very principled woman." Sebastian left the hotel feeling hollow. He drove aimlessly through the city until he found himself parked outside a small cafe in an artsy neighborhood. Through the window, he could see Elena sitting at a corner table, working on a laptop while sipping coffee. She was alone, giving him an opportunity he couldn't resist. He entered the cafe, ordered a coffee, and approached her table with what he hoped was a casual expression. "Elena? What a coincidence." She looked up, her expression unreadable. "Sebastian, 2 encounters in 2 days. That's not a coincidence." "Can I sit?" he asked, gesturing to the empty chair across from her. "It's a public place," she replied. Not exactly an invitation, but not a refusal either. Sebastian sat down, unsure how to begin. "I spent the morning learning about your company. I'm impressed." "Are you?" Elena closed her laptop, giving him her full attention. "And what exactly impressed you?" "Everything. The Meridian project, your client list, your innovative approach. You've built something remarkable." "Thank you," she said simply, without the gratitude he had expected. "Elena, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me." "I'm always honest, Sebastian. That was one of our problems, remember? You preferred convenient lies. The accusation stung because it was true." "When we were married, were you already studying engineering?" Elena smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. "Every Tuesday and Thursday night for 3 years. I told you I was taking courses to improve myself, but you never asked what kind of courses. You assumed they were cooking classes or crafts." Sebastian felt his face burn with shame. I don't remember you mentioning engineering." "Because you never listened. You were too busy planning your empire to notice that your wife was building dreams of her own. Why didn't you insist? Why didn't you make me understand how important it was?" Elena leaned back in her chair, studying him with those confident eyes that seemed to see right through him. "Because I was young and insecure, and I believed that supporting your dreams was more important than pursuing my own. I thought that's what a good wife did. And now? Now I know that a good partner supports each other's dreams, not sacrifices them for someone else's ego. The words hit Sebastian like physical blows. Is that what David does? Supports your dreams? Elena's expression softened slightly, the first sign of genuine emotion he had seen. David and I met at a sustainability conference 2 years ago. He was presenting his research on renewable energy systems, and I was presenting my hotel consulting work. We discovered we shared the same vision for environmental responsibility in business. And personally, David treats me like an equal. He celebrates my successes instead of feeling threatened by them. He encourages me to take risks instead of telling me to be more realistic. Each word was carefully chosen, Sebastian realized, designed to show him exactly what he had failed to provide. Elena, I know I hurt you. I know I was blind and selfish. But can't we try again? Can't we build something new together? Elena was quiet for a long moment, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. Sebastian, what exactly do you think you're offering me? Everything. Marriage, partnership in my business, the life you deserve. The life I deserve, she repeated slowly. And what life is that? Security, luxury, prestige, everything I can provide. Elena shook her head sadly. You still don't understand, do you? You're still trying to rescue me from a life I don't need rescuing from. But I love you, Elena. I never stopped loving you. You love the idea of me, she corrected gently. You love the memory of the woman who made you feel important and needed. But you don't know who I am now. Sebastian felt desperation creeping into his voice. Then help me know you. Give me a chance to love the woman you've become. Elena stood up, gathering her things. Sebastian, 5 years ago you made it very clear that I wasn't enough for you. Now that I've built a life I'm proud of, you want to be part of it. Do you see the problem with that? She paused at the table, looking down at him with something that might have been pity. I'm not the same woman you left behind. I don't need you to complete me or provide for me or give my life meaning. I already have all of those things. As she walked toward the door, Sebastian called out, Elena, wait! She turned back one last time. Sebastian, I hope you find what you're looking for. But you won't find it by trying to reclaim a past that no longer exists. Watching her leave, Sebastian realized that he wasn't just competing with David for Elena's affections. He was competing with the strong, independent woman Elena had become. A woman who no longer needed anyone to define her worth. The hardest truth to accept was that the woman he wanted back had never really existed. The Elena he remembered had been diminished by his expectations, reduced to fit his narrow vision of what a wife should be. The real Elena, brilliant, ambitious, capable, had been there all along, waiting for someone to see her potential. Now someone else had recognized what he had been too blind to appreciate, and Sebastian was left wondering if some mistakes were simply too profound to undo. 3 days passed before Sebastian could bring himself to return to normal life. His office felt like a prison of mahogany and marble, the success that had once defined him now seeming hollow and meaningless. He stared out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the city below, watching tiny figures move through their lives while his own seemed frozen in a moment of reckoning. His secretary, Monica, knocked softly on the door. Mr. Torres, your appointment with the Aurora Resort investors is in 10 minutes. Cancel it, Sebastian said without turning around. Sir, this is the 3rd meeting you've canceled this week. They're getting concerned. Sebastian finally faced her, noting the worry in her expression. Monica had worked for him for 8 years, long enough to know that his current behavior was completely out of character. Monica, can I ask you something personal? She hesitated, clearly surprised by the question. Of course, Mr. Torres. Did you know my ex-wife, Elena? Monica's face softened immediately. Mrs. Elena? Yes, sir. She used to come to the office sometimes, especially during the early years of your business. What was your impression of her? She was lovely, sir. Always kind to everyone, from the cleaning staff to the executives. She remembered everyone's names, asked about their families. Monica paused, choosing her words carefully. If I may say so, sir, she seemed to genuinely care about people. Did you know she was studying engineering while we were married? Monica's surprise was evident. Engineering? No, sir, I had no idea. Though, she trailed off, looking uncertain. Though what? Well, I remember she always carried thick textbooks with her. And sometimes when she was waiting for you, she would work on complex mathematical equations. I assumed it was accounting or something related to helping with your business. Sebastian felt another wave of shame wash over him. Even his secretary had noticed Elena's academic pursuits while he had remained oblivious. Monica, I need you to do something for me. I need you to find Carmen Rodriguez. She was Elena's best friend. Get me her contact information. Right away, sir. Carmen had been Elena's maid of honor and closest confidant. If anyone knew what Elena had gone through after their divorce, it would be her. Sebastian knew this conversation would be painful, but he needed to understand the full scope of his betrayal. That evening, Sebastian sat across from Carmen in a small family restaurant she had chosen. She was a teacher now, he learned, married with 2 children. Her greeting had been polite but cool, her dark eyes holding a wariness that spoke volumes about her opinion of him. I was surprised to hear from you, Sebastian, Carmen said, stirring her coffee slowly. What could you possibly want to discuss with me? Elena, he said simply. I need to know what happened to her after I left. Carmen's laugh was bitter. Now you want to know? 5 years too late, don't you think? Carmen, please. I know I don't deserve your help, but I need to understand. She studied his face for a long moment, perhaps seeing something there that convinced her of his sincerity. Understanding won't change what you did, Sebastian. I know, but maybe it will help me figure out how to make amends. Carmen sighed deeply, setting down her coffee cup. You really want to know what Elena went through after you abandoned her? The word abandoned hit him like a physical blow, but he nodded. She was devastated, Sebastian. Completely broken. The day you left, she called me crying so hard I couldn't understand what she was saying. I had to drive over to your house, her house, since you had already moved out to your fancy apartment. Carmen's voice grew harder as she continued. I found her sitting on the kitchen floor surrounded by unpaid bills and eviction notices. Did you know that you left her with 3 months of overdue mortgage payments? Sebastian felt the blood drain from his face. What? No, that's impossible. I made sure all the bills were current when I left. You made sure your bills were current. The house was in her name, remember? You had transferred it to her during your tax restructuring, but you forgot to transfer the mortgage payments to your new account. The memory came flooding back. His accountant had suggested putting the house in Elena's name for tax purposes. He had signed the papers without thinking, never considering the financial responsibility he was placing on her shoulders. She had no income, Sebastian, no savings of her own because everything was in your accounts, which you closed. She was left with a house she couldn't afford and no way to pay for it. But why didn't she call me? Why didn't she tell me? Carmen's eyes flashed with anger. She tried. She called your office dozens of times, but you were always in meetings or traveling. She even went to your apartment building, but the doorman had instructions not to let her up. Sebastian remembered those instructions. He had told the doorman he didn't want to be disturbed by his emotional ex-wife. The memory now made him sick. What did she do? What could she do? She sold everything of value in the house. Her jewelry, the artwork you had bought together, even her grandmother's antique furniture. When that wasn't enough, she took 3 jobs. 3 jobs. She cleaned offices at night, waited tables during lunch shifts, and tutored high school students in the evenings. 20 hours a day, Sebastian. She was working 20 hours a day just to keep a roof over her head. Each word was like a knife twisting in Sebastian's chest. How long did this go on? 8 months. 8 months of her working herself to exhaustion while trying to study for her engineering exams during the few hours she had left. I barely recognized her during that time. She lost 30 pounds. Her hair started falling out from stress and she developed an ulcer. My God, Elena! Oh, we're not done yet, Carmen continued relentlessly. After 8 months, she finally lost the house anyway. The bank foreclosed, and she had to move in with her elderly aunt in that tiny apartment across town. 1 bedroom, no air conditioning, in a neighborhood where sirens kept her awake all night. Sebastian buried his face in his hands. Why didn't anyone tell me? Who was going to tell you? You made it very clear that Elena was no longer part of your life. You changed your phone number, moved to that exclusive building, started dating that socialite. What was her name? Victoria. Vanessa, Sebastian whispered. Right, Vanessa. Elena saw the photos in the society pages. There you were, 3 months after leaving her, at some charity gala with your new girlfriend, while Elena was cleaning office buildings at midnight. The restaurant around them seemed to fade away as Sebastian absorbed the full weight of what he had done. He had not simply left Elena. He had destroyed her life, and then moved on as if she had never existed. How did she survive it all? Sheer determination, Carmen said, her voice softening slightly. And spite, if I'm being honest. She used to say that she would prove to herself that she was worth more than you had given her credit for. Every night when she came home exhausted from her 3 jobs, she would study. Every weekend when other people were relaxing, she was in the library. When did things start to turn around? Slowly. She got an internship with a small environmental consulting firm during her final semester. Unpaid, of course, but it was experience. She impressed them so much that they offered her a full-time position when she graduated. That's where she met her first real mentor, a woman named Patricia Vega, who believed in her potential. Sebastian absorbed this information, realizing that Elena's success hadn't been handed to her. She had built it from the ashes of the life he had destroyed. And David? Carmen smiled for the first time during their conversation. David is everything you never were, Sebastian. He sees Elena's brilliance and celebrates it instead of feeling threatened by it. He supported her when she wanted to start her own company, even invested his own money in it. Are they happy? Elena is happy. Really, genuinely happy. For the first time since I've known her, she's with someone who truly values her. Carmen gathered her purse, preparing to leave. Sebastian, I don't know why you're asking about all this now, but let me give you some advice. Leave Elena alone. She's built a beautiful life from the ruins you left behind. Don't you think you've done enough damage? As Carmen walked away, Sebastian sat alone in the restaurant, finally understanding the true cost of his arrogance. Elena hadn't simply moved on from their relationship. She had clawed her way back from the brink of destruction, rebuilding herself from nothing into something extraordinary. The woman he wanted back had been forged in the fire of abandonment and hardship that he had created. Every success she had achieved, every confident step she took, was a testament to the strength she had found after he had tried to break her. Now he understood why Elena looked at him with such composure. She had already survived the worst thing he could do to her. She had no reason to fear him anymore, and certainly no reason to need him. The question that haunted him as he sat in the empty restaurant was simple. Was there any way to earn forgiveness from someone whose strength had been built on surviving your betrayal? Sebastian spent the next morning in his office, staring at Elena's company website for the 100th time. Green Horizon Consulting had an impressive portfolio, but Sebastian's business mind immediately began analyzing ways it could be improved. The company needed larger offices, more capital for expansion, connections with international clients. These were problems he could solve. His phone buzzed with a text from his business partner Marcus. Emergency meeting. The Costa Rica resort project just hit a major snag. Environmental permits denied. Need immediate consultation. Sebastian paused, his finger hovering over the reply button. The Costa Rica project was a $200 million luxury resort development, their biggest venture yet. And suddenly, he knew exactly how to solve 2 problems at once. Marcus, he said, calling immediately. I know exactly who can help us with the environmental issues. Elena Morales from Green Horizon Consulting. Never heard of her. Is she reliable? She's the best in the business, Sebastian said, his mind racing with possibilities. And Marcus, I want to make her an offer she can't refuse. 2 hours later, Sebastian stood outside Elena's office building, a modest but elegant structure in the business district. Through the glass doors, he could see a reception area with living walls and recycled furniture that somehow managed to look both environmentally conscious and sophisticated. The receptionist, a young man with an earnest demeanor, greeted him warmly. Good afternoon. How can I help you? Sebastian Torres from Torres Development Group. I'd like to speak with Elena Morales about a consulting opportunity. Do you have an appointment, Mr. Torres? No, but tell her it's regarding a $200 million project in Costa Rica. I think she'll want to hear what I have to say. The receptionist made a quick call, and within minutes, Elena appeared in the lobby. She wore a tailored green blazer that complemented her confident demeanor, and Sebastian noticed that several employees greeted her warmly as she passed. Clearly a respected leader, not just a boss. Sebastian, she said, her voice professionally neutral. This is unexpected. Elena, I have a business proposition that I think will interest you. She gestured toward a small conference room off the lobby. 5 minutes. As they settled into chairs across from each other, Sebastian felt the familiar surge of confidence that came with negotiating deals. This was his territory. Business, money, problem-solving. Surely Elena would see the wisdom of his offer. "I'll get straight to the point," he began. "Torres Development has a major resort project in Costa Rica that's stalled due to environmental permit issues. We need the best environmental consultant in the country, and from what I've learned, that's you." Elena leaned back slightly, her expression unreadable. "And? I want to hire Green Horizon as our exclusive consultant. Not just for this project, but for all future Torres Development ventures. I'm talking about a 5-year contract worth $15 million. Elena's eyebrows rose slightly, the first sign of surprise she had shown. $15 million? That's right. Plus, I want to discuss a partnership opportunity. Torres Development could provide the capital for Green Horizon to expand internationally. We're talking about opening offices in Miami, Mexico City, maybe even Barcelona. He pulled out a folder containing preliminary contracts his legal team had hastily prepared. "Elena, with our resources and your expertise, we could revolutionize sustainable luxury development across Latin America." Elena took the documents, but didn't open them. "This is quite an offer, Sebastian. What's the catch?" "No catch. Just good business. You have something I need, and I have something you need." "And what exactly do I need?" Sebastian spread his hands confidently. "Growth capital, international connections, access to major developers. Elena, you're thinking too small. Green Horizon could be a global brand, not just a regional consultancy." Elena was quiet for a long moment, studying the unopened folder. "Sebastian, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you know what Green Horizon's mission statement is?" The question caught him off guard. "Well, environmental consulting for sustainable development?" Elena smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. "Our mission is to prove that environmental responsibility and business success aren't contradictory. We work exclusively with companies that are genuinely committed to sustainability, not just using green initiatives as marketing tools." "That's exactly what Torres Development is committed to," Sebastian said quickly. "Really? Then why is your Costa Rica project being denied environmental permits?" Sebastian felt the first stirring of unease. There were some oversights in the initial planning. Nothing that can't be fixed. What kind of oversights? Technical issues with water management and wildlife preservation. Standard problems that environmental consultants deal with all the time. Elena opened her laptop and quickly typed something. After a moment, she turned the screen toward Sebastian. It showed an environmental impact report for the Torres Costa Rica project, with several sections highlighted in red. "Sebastian, your project involves building directly on a sea turtle nesting beach, redirecting 3 freshwater streams, and clearing 40 acres of protected rainforest. These aren't technical oversights. These are fundamental violations of Costa Rican environmental law." Sebastian felt his confidence wavering. "How did you get that report?" "Costa Rican environmental impact assessments are public record. I pulled it up while you were talking." Elena closed the laptop. "Tell me, Sebastian, when you decided to hire me, did you research what kind of projects Green Horizon typically works on? I know you specialize in sustainable luxury development. We specialize in projects that are genuinely sustainable from conception. We've never taken on a project that required fixing environmental violations after the fact." The room felt smaller suddenly, and Sebastian realized his carefully planned strategy was crumbling. "Elena, every major development faces environmental challenges. That's why companies hire consultants like you to solve problems." "Companies hire consultants like me to avoid problems," Elena corrected. "We work with developers who prioritize environmental protection from day one, not as an afterthought." Sebastian leaned forward, trying to regain control of the conversation. "Elena, I'm offering you $15 million. That's more money than Green Horizon has made in its entire existence." "And there it is," Elena said softly. "There's what? You still think everything comes down to money? You still believe that throwing enough cash at a problem will make it disappear? That's not what I'm doing, isn't it?" Elena stood up, pushing the unopened contract folder back across the table. "Sebastian, you waltz in here with a $15 million offer for a project that violates every principle my company stands for, and you expect me to be grateful for the opportunity. I expect you to be smart about business. This isn't about business, Sebastian. This is about you trying to buy your way back into my life. The accusation hit Sebastian like a physical blow. That's not... Elena, this is a legitimate business opportunity. Is it? Or is it another attempt to rescue me from a life you think I need rescuing from? Sebastian stood up as well, his frustration boiling over. Damn it, Elena, I'm trying to help you. I'm offering you more money than you've ever dreamed of. And you still don't get it, Elena said, her voice rising for the first time. I don't want your money, Sebastian. I don't want your rescue. I want you to leave me alone. Fine, Sebastian snapped, his old arrogance returning. Turn down $15 million. Stay small, stay regional, stay limited, but don't come crying to me when your competitors pass you by. Elena's laugh was cold. My competitors? Sebastian, 3 of the companies you consider my competitors have tried to buy Green Horizon in the past year. We're not staying small because we have to. We're staying independent because we choose to. What do you mean? Sustainable Solutions. International offered us $20 million last month. Ecolux Consulting offered $25 million in February. We turned them all down because money isn't our primary motivation. Sebastian felt the ground shifting beneath his feet again. $25 million? And you said no? We said no. Because selling to a larger firm would mean compromising our standards. It would mean taking on projects like yours. Projects that prioritize profit over environmental protection. She moved toward the door, clearly ending the meeting. Sebastian, I don't know what fantasy you've constructed in your mind, but let me make something very clear. I don't need you to make me successful. I don't need your money, your connections, or your partnership. I've built something I'm proud of, something that matters. Elena, wait. No, Sebastian. I want you to listen to me very carefully. Elena turned back, her eyes blazing with an intensity he had never seen before. 5 years ago you left me because you thought I wasn't sophisticated enough for your world. Now you're trying to force me into a business relationship because you think I'm not successful enough without your help. That's not. In both cases, you're wrong about who I am and what I need. 5 years ago, I needed a husband who believed in me. Today, I need a past that stays in the past. Sebastian watched helplessly as Elena opened the conference room door. Your Costa Rica project will never get environmental approval, Sebastian. Not with those plans, not with any consultant. If you genuinely wanted to build something sustainable, you would start over with a completely different approach. And if I did that, if I redesigned the entire project from scratch, Elena paused in the doorway, then you wouldn't need to hire Green Horizon. You'd need to become the kind of developer who doesn't create environmental disasters in the first place. As the door closed behind her, Sebastian remained standing in the empty conference room, surrounded by his unopened contracts and shattered assumptions. He had come here convinced that money and opportunity would win Elena back. Instead, he had proven once again that he fundamentally misunderstood what motivated her. The woman who had once struggled to pay her mortgage had just turned down $15 million without hesitation. The woman he had thought needed his rescue was being courted by companies offering even larger sums. Most painful of all, Elena had exposed the truth he had been trying to avoid. His offer hadn't been about helping her business. It had been about buying his way back into her life. Standing alone in that conference room, Sebastian finally understood that Elena's transformation wasn't just professional. She had developed something he had never possessed, the strength to walk away from opportunities that compromised her values. The question now was whether he had the same strength to walk away from a dream that was never going to come true. Sebastian's drive home from Elena's office was a blur of honking horns and traffic lights that he barely noticed. His mind replayed every word of their conversation, each revelation hitting him like a series of physical blows. $25 million. Elena had turned down $25 million. The woman he had once considered financially naive was making business decisions that put his own profit-driven mindset to shame. He parked in his building's underground garage and sat in the silence for several minutes, unable to face his empty penthouse. Everything about his life suddenly felt hollow. The marble countertops, the designer furniture, the awards on his walls celebrating his business acumen. What did any of it matter if he had gained it all by destroying the one person who had ever truly believed in him? His phone buzzed with a call from Marcus. "Sebastian, where are you?" The investors are furious about the Costa Rica delay. We need to decide how to move forward. Cancel the project, Sebastian said quietly. What? Sebastian? Are you insane? We've invested 18 months and $12 million in development costs. Cancel it, Marcus. The environmental impact is too severe. We need to find a different location. There was a long pause on the other end. Sebastian, what the hell has gotten into you? Since when do you care about environmental impact? Since Elena showed him what integrity looked like, Sebastian thought, but didn't say. Since I realized that short-term profits aren't worth long-term consequences. Are you feeling all right? This doesn't sound like you at all. Marcus was right. It didn't sound like him. The old Sebastian would have hired a team of lawyers to fight the environmental regulations, would have found ways to circumvent the restrictions, would have bulldozed through any obstacle to protect his investment. But the old Sebastian had also been blind to the brilliant woman sleeping beside him every night for 3 years. I'm fine, Marcus. Just schedule a meeting for tomorrow morning. We'll discuss alternative sites that don't require destroying protected ecosystems. After hanging up, Sebastian found himself standing in his kitchen, staring at the granite island, where he had eaten countless meals alone. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to remember the modest kitchen in the Blue House, where Elena had cooked simple meals that had tasted better than anything his current chef could prepare. On impulse, he grabbed his keys and drove back to Elena's old neighborhood. The Blue House looked different now, freshly painted with a small garden in front that Elena had always talked about planting. A young family lived there now. He could see children's toys scattered on the lawn and hear laughter from the backyard. He parked across the street and called Carmen. Sebastian, what do you want now? Carmen, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. When am I not honest with you? During Elena's worst period after I left, did she ever try to hurt herself? The silence on the other end stretched so long that Sebastian wondered if the call had dropped. Carmen, why are you asking me this? Her voice was barely a whisper. Because I need to know how much damage I caused. I need to understand the full scope of what I did to her. Another long pause. Sebastian, there was one night. His heart stopped. What happened? It was about 6 months after you left. Elena had been working 20-hour days, barely eating, running on maybe 3 hours of sleep. I went to check on her and found her collapsed on her kitchen floor, unconscious from exhaustion. Sebastian felt the world tilt around him. Oh God, Elena. When she came to, she just started crying and couldn't stop. She said she felt like she was drowning, that everything was too much, that she didn't know how to keep going. She was so broken, so completely defeated, that I genuinely feared she might have a complete breakdown. Sebastian gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. What did you do? I turned off the car, dragged her out of there, and made her come stay with me for 2 weeks. I hid her car keys and made her promise to call me if she ever felt that way again. Did she? Feel that way again? I don't know, but she never attempted anything. After those 2 weeks, something changed in her. It was like she made a decision to fight instead of surrender. Sebastian closed his eyes, overwhelmed by the weight of what Carmen was telling him. His abandonment hadn't just broken Elena's heart. It had nearly broken her completely. Carmen, why didn't you call me? Why didn't you tell me how bad things had gotten? And what would you have done, Sebastian? Rushed back to save her out of guilt. Elena didn't need a rescue. She needed to find her own strength. And she did. But I could have helped. I could have. You could have not left in the first place, Carmen interrupted sharply. You could have not treated your wife like she was disposable. You could have not made her feel so worthless that she questioned whether her life had any value. Each word was like a nail in his coffin. Sebastian had always told himself that leaving Elena had been difficult, but necessary for both of them. He had convinced himself that she would be better off without him, that she would find someone more suitable, that she would be fine. He had never imagined that his departure would push her to the brink of not wanting to exist at all. Carmen, is there anything I can do to make amends? Anything at all? You want to make amends. Leave her alone, Sebastian. She's built a life she's proud of, with a man who values her. Don't destroy that because you've finally realized what you threw away. But I love her. You love the idea of her. You love the memory of how she made you feel important and needed. But you don't love Elena, the real Elena, The woman who survived your abandonment and became stronger than you ever gave her credit for being. Carmen's words echoed Elena's from the cafe, and Sebastian realized that everyone could see the truth except him. The Elena you left behind doesn't exist anymore, Carmen continued. She died in that garage that night, and a stronger woman was born from her ashes. That woman doesn't need you, doesn't want you, and certainly doesn't owe you forgiveness. So there's nothing I can do? Yes, there is something you can do. You can become the kind of man who deserves forgiveness. Not for Elena's sake, but for your own, and for the sake of whoever is unlucky enough to love you next. After Carmen hung up, Sebastian sat in his car across from the blue house, watching the happy family that lived there now. Children ran through the sprinkler in the front yard while their parents watched from the porch, the picture of contentment that he and Elena might have had if he hadn't been so consumed with proving his worth to people who didn't matter. For the first time since returning to find Elena transformed, Sebastian stopped thinking about what he could do to win her back, and started thinking about what he needed to do to become worthy of anyone's love. Elena had survived the worst thing he could do to her and emerged stronger. She had built a life of purpose and integrity, while he had built a life of profit and prestige. She had learned to value herself, while he had learned to value only success. The devastating truth was that Elena had outgrown him in every way that mattered. She had become the person she was meant to be, while he was still the same man who had valued appearances over substance, status over character. As Sebastian drove away from the blue house for what he knew would be the last time, he carried with him the knowledge that some damage cannot be undone, some betrayals cannot be forgiven, and some chances, once lost, are never offered again. But perhaps, if he was very lucky and worked very hard, he might become the kind of man who would never make such devastating mistakes again. Not for Elena's sake, but for the sake of the person he could still choose to become. The hardest lesson of all was that redemption wasn't about winning back what you had lost. It was about becoming worthy of what you might find in the future. 6 months had passed since Sebastian's conversation with Carmen, and the transformation in his life was as dramatic as it was painful. Torres' development group had pivoted entirely, canceling 3 major projects that couldn't meet environmental standards, and investing millions in sustainable technology research. The financial hit was substantial, but Sebastian found himself sleeping better than he had in years. His phone rang as he reviewed plans for a new eco-resort in Brazil, one designed from the ground up to protect rather than exploit the surrounding ecosystem. Mr. Torres, this is Patricia Vega from the Environmental Protection Foundation. I believe you know my protégé, Elena Morales. Sebastian's heart skipped. Yes, I know Elena. How can I help you, Ms. Vega? I'm calling because we're hosting the International Sustainable Development Conference next month, and your company's recent transformation has caught our attention. We'd like to invite you to speak about corporate responsibility and environmental accountability. Me? Speak at a conference? Your journey from profit-focused development to environmental stewardship is exactly the kind of story our industry needs to hear. Real change, real accountability, real consequences. Sebastian accepted the invitation, though speaking publicly about his failures terrified him more than any business deal ever had. Over the following weeks, he prepared not a presentation about success, but a confession about failure and the long road to redemption. The conference was held in a stunning venue that showcased sustainable architecture, living walls, solar power, reclaimed materials that somehow managed to look luxurious and responsible simultaneously. Sebastian arrived early, nervous energy making him pace the corridors. Sebastian? He turned to find Elena standing behind him, but she wasn't alone. David was with her, along with a teenage girl who could only be Elena's daughter. She had Elena's intelligent eyes and determined chin. Elena. Sebastian's voice caught slightly. I didn't expect to see you here. I'm receiving the Innovation in Sustainable Business Award, she said simply. This is my daughter, Sophia, and you already know David. Sebastian shook hands with David, noting that the other man's grip was firm but not hostile. Sophia studied Sebastian with the frank curiosity of teenagers. You're the ex-husband Mom never talks about, Sophia said bluntly. Sophia? Elena chided, but Sebastian actually smiled. I am, and I'm guessing there are good reasons your mother doesn't talk about me. There are, Sophia replied matter-of-factly, but she also says that people can change if they really want to. that everyone deserves a chance to become better. The simple words hit Sebastian harder than any accusation could have. Even after everything, Elena was teaching her daughter grace and forgiveness. "Your mother is a wise woman," Sebastian said quietly, "and you're lucky to have her." "I know," Sophia replied with teenage confidence. "She's pretty amazing." The awkward moment was interrupted by Patricia Vega approaching their group. "Elena, darling, and Sebastian, perfect timing. I was hoping you two could meet before the presentations." Sebastian felt panic rising. "Actually, I should probably review my notes." "Nonsense," Patricia continued. "Elena, Sebastian is speaking today about corporate transformation and environmental accountability. Given your history, I thought you might offer some perspective." Elena looked at Sebastian with surprise. "You're speaking about environmental accountability?" "Among other things," Sebastian replied, his stomach churning. "Mostly about making amends for past mistakes." Before Elena could respond, an organizer approached to escort Sebastian to the preparation area. As he walked away, he heard Sophia asking Elena, "Mom, what did he mean about making amends?" Sebastian's presentation was scheduled for the afternoon, giving him time to attend other sessions. He found himself drawn to Elena's panel on innovation through adversity, where she spoke eloquently about building businesses that prioritized values over profits. "True innovation," Elena said to the packed auditorium, "comes from constraint, not from unlimited resources. When you're forced to find solutions that don't compromise your principles, you discover possibilities you never knew existed." Watching her command the room with such confidence and wisdom, Sebastian felt the familiar ache of loss, but for the first time, it was accompanied by genuine pride. This remarkable woman had not only survived his betrayal, she had used it as fuel to become extraordinary. When Sebastian's turn came to speak, he walked to the podium with trembling hands. The auditorium was full, hundreds of environmental professionals and business leaders waiting to hear about his company's transformation. "My name is Sebastian Torres," he began, his voice steadier than he felt. 5 years ago, I was the kind of developer you would have protested against. I built luxury resorts on protected beaches, diverted rivers for golf courses, and cleared forests for parking lots. I told myself I was creating jobs and economic growth, but the truth is, I was driven by greed and ego. The audience was silent, hanging on every word. I want to tell you about the moment everything changed. It wasn't a dramatic revelation or a spiritual awakening. It was simply the day I realized that the most environmentally conscious person I knew had been sleeping beside me for 3 years, and I had been too arrogant to listen to her. Sebastian's eyes found Elena in the audience. She was sitting very still, her expression unreadable. "My ex-wife tried to tell me about sustainability, about environmental responsibility, about building with nature instead of against it. But I dismissed her ideas because she didn't have a business degree. I ignored her suggestions because they might reduce short-term profits. I treated her passion for environmental protection as a naive hobby, instead of the visionary thinking it actually was." He paused, gathering courage for what came next. "When I left my wife, I told myself it was because she wasn't sophisticated enough for my world. The truth is, I left because her integrity made me uncomfortable. She had principles I wasn't willing to adopt, and values I wasn't strong enough to embrace." The auditorium remained silent, but Sebastian could see people leaning forward, engaged with his honesty. "What I learned, too late to save my marriage but not too late to save my soul, is that she wasn't too simple for my world. I was too shallow for hers. She wasn't holding me back from success. I was holding myself back from significance." Sebastian took a breath, seeing Elena wipe her eyes in the audience. "Today, Torres Development builds only projects that enhance their environments rather than exploit them. We've invested $30 million in renewable energy research. We've partnered with indigenous communities to create ecotourism that preserves cultural heritage while providing economic opportunity." He clicked to the next slide, showing before and after photos of the Costa Rica location where he had once planned to build a destructive resort. "This site in Costa Rica, where I once planned to build a luxury resort by destroying turtle nesting grounds, is now a protected reserve that Torres Development helped establish. We funded marine research facilities and hired local communities as conservation guides." Applause began to ripple through the audience. But I want to be clear about something, Sebastian continued, raising his hand to quiet the applause. I'm not here to be congratulated for doing what I should have been doing all along. I'm here to tell you that change is possible, but only if you're willing to acknowledge the full cost of your past mistakes. He clicked to the final slide, which showed Elena's company logo alongside several others. These are the environmental consulting firms that we now work with exclusively. Green Horizon Consulting, led by my ex-wife, Elena Morales, has taught us that true luxury means harmony with nature, not domination over it. Sebastian looked directly at Elena as he continued, Elena, if you're listening, I want you to know that you didn't fail to change me during our marriage. I failed to listen, but your voice stayed with me and eventually it became impossible to ignore. The standing ovation that followed was thunderous, but Sebastian barely heard it. He was watching Elena, who had tears streaming down her face while David rubbed her shoulders supportively and Sophia beamed with pride. After the presentation, Sebastian was surrounded by business leaders wanting to discuss partnerships and reporters seeking interviews. But through the crowd, he saw Elena approaching. Sebastian, she said when she finally reached him. That was brave. It was honest, he replied. Finally. They stood looking at each other for a moment, years of pain and growth stretching between them. I need you to know, Elena said quietly, that I never wanted you to carry guilt about what happened between us. I wanted you to learn from it, and I have. Too late for us, but not too late for me to become someone worth respecting. Elena smiled, the first genuinely warm smile she had given him since his return. You already are, Sebastian. What you're doing now, the changes you've made, that takes real courage. Elena, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect friendship. I just wanted you to know that the woman you tried to be during our marriage, caring, principled, visionary, she won. Your values are winning. Thank you, Elena said simply. That means more than you know. David approached with Sophia, and Sebastian extended his hand to both of them. David, thank you for seeing Elena's worth when I was too blind to appreciate it. And Sophia, your mother is right. People can change. But change only matters if it helps you become someone who builds others up instead of tearing them down. As the family walked away together, Sebastian felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Peace. Not the peace of getting what he wanted, but the peace of becoming who he needed to be. 6 months later, Sebastian received an invitation that made him smile. Elena and David were getting married, and they wanted him to attend as a friend who had learned to celebrate love without trying to possess it. At the wedding, held in a beautiful garden that showcased sustainable landscaping, Sebastian watched Elena dance with her new husband, while Sophia laughed with friends nearby. The woman who had once been broken by his abandonment was now radiant with joy earned through her own strength and shared with someone who valued her completely. When Elena and David approached Sebastian during the reception, he stood and raised his glass. To Elena, he said, his voice carrying across the garden, who taught me that the greatest love is not holding someone back to make yourself feel important, but letting them go to become who they're meant to be. Elena hugged him then, a brief but genuine embrace that held no romance, no regret, only the recognition of two people who had both grown beyond who they used to be. Thank you, Sebastian, she whispered, for becoming the man I always knew you could be. As Sebastian left the wedding that evening, he carried with him the most valuable lesson of his life. Redemption isn't about getting back what you lost. It's about becoming worthy of what you might find next. The millionaire who had returned to reclaim his ex-wife had learned instead to reclaim his humanity. And sometimes that transformation is worth more than any fortune ever could be.